So let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Marissa May. Super excited to be with you guys here in I get it a lot from students. I have students who say, I'm really not any good at math, or math was never my best subject, things like that. I'm hoping that we can show you in this particular class that you're going to see that we aren't necessarily going to be doing math the way you might have done it before. Okay. And so, yeah, we are going to do some calculations. Maybe we'll do, but mainly it's going to be add and subtract, multiply and divide. You can use your calculator for that. And I'll be walking alongside you the entire course. So you'll find that I have created tons and tons of resources to help you along the way. And the math that we're going to look like is more about understanding the numbers. That's why my session today is titled Who Has Time for Numbers? And so I'm going to take a little bit of an approach to it so that you will be able to see how we can not be afraid of the numbers anymore, or maybe not be as afraid as maybe we were in the past. So my commitment to you is that we'll make the most of your time. I will cover the pieces and parts that I want to cover with you. Make sure you have all the information you need to be very, very successful. Um, Also, just to mention as we get started today, you're going to notice that I do some spotlights in my sessions. Now, my spotlights are um, intended to give us an example of a particular concept. But for those of you who are in my section of the RAM110, the spotlights are where you're going to be looking for the pieces you'll need for the live lecture quiz. So just a little bit different than maybe you have seen before. Um, and so that's where you're going to look for your answers to the live lecture quiz. So be watching for those spotlights. They'll come periodically throughout the session, and you'll want to make note of those so that you get those taken care of. All right. Any questions for me before we begin? Just logistics. Okay, I'm going to be enjoying my cup of peppermint tea today. I had my coffee earlier and couldn't really justify a second cup today. But I'm going to try to pull out the peppermint tea and kind of warm up just a little bit. Now, I'm located in Houston, Texas. And so many of you are laughing me like, you don't even know what cold is. And you're right. I have no clue what cold is. Cold to me is like 30s or 40s. And I know some of you experience 30s and 40s all the time, and snow and all of that stuff. But here in Houston, we don't have that. So as we jump in today, let me tell you a little bit about myself. Like I said, I'm located in Houston, Texas. My husband and I have 5 busy children. I'll say that. Our oldest is 20. Our youngest is 9. And we have 3 girls. They came first, and then 2 boys. So lots of fun. But also, I think sometimes that I was given 5 children to give me perspective, right? So I totally understand the working parent who wants to go to school. I did my graduate degree while I had children. And so I totally understand everybody coming to the table. Mom's got to do her homework. Um, I'll just call them their name. Bethany's got to do her homework. Colin's got his homework. We're all sitting at the table helping each other with homework. And I totally understand that. And I just want to encourage you. Your kids are going to remember those things, and they're going to think it was the best thing ever. They're going to remember seeing you working hard. My kids today still tell me stories about, Mom, I remember when you sat at the table with your laptop and I sat right beside you working on my essay, and we helped each other. Remember when I helped you spell that word and all of that stuff? And so they're going to love that. It's good memories for them. And they're just watching you work hard and achieve your goals. And I just know from experience, my kids are like, Mom, we saw you work hard. We saw you stay up late to get those assignments done. And I think that's a good thing. So we have 5 kids, like I said. 20 is the oldest. My oldest is at a junior at Texas A&M University. She's a nutrition major, hoping to change the world through nutrition. Wants to be a registered dietitian. And then my second oldest is a graduating senior. So she is going to Houston Baptist University in the fall, and not sure really what she wants to major in, but probably some kind of business. So yeah, and everybody else under that is, going to regular school. And my husband is also a teacher. So our house kind of functions on a school timeline. Uh, that being said, I've been with this school for quite a while. I've been 10 years. It's crazy to think that I've been doing this long for 10 years. But I'm hoping that you're going to see that I really put a lot of time and effort into our course to give you all of the resources that you need. Now, that being said, if there's something that you look at and you say, man, if I had this, it would really help me, let me know. I'm always looking for new ideas. I'm constantly creating new resources. You guys, I'm rolling out a new resource, this mod that I created that's focusing on the vocabulary for our class. And so I'm going to do a session tomorrow all about vocabulary for week 1. And so if you want to take a look at that, join me tomorrow afternoon, and I'll go over, what do the words mean? By the way, good preparation for the assessment if you're in my class. So yeah, join me tomorrow. We'll look at the vocabulary that's necessary for week 1, and I think it's going to be a good resource. But we're rolling it out, this mod, in hopes that it will help a lot of students. So, all right, enough being said, let's jump into the content for today. Like I said, who has time for numbers? So I posed this question for you, and I should have put numbers on these, but think to yourself, and if you want to share with us in the chat, we'd love you to. But think about which statement best reflects you. Are you the type that I'd rather not look at the numbers? I have no idea what the numbers mean. I look at the numbers occasionally, or I look at the numbers on a regular basis. Take about 60 seconds, and you are welcome to let us know in the chat which category you fall into, or you don't have to if you don't want to either. It's kind of a private thing. I'd rather not look at the numbers. I have no ideas what the numbers mean. I look at the numbers occasionally, or I look at the numbers on a regular basis. Which statement best reflects you?
The second one for me, I have no idea what they mean. Basically, I don't know what they mean. So numbers can be different things, mean different variety of different things. So be honest with you, as far as this course, as who has time for numbers, I have time for numbers, but I don't know which numbers we're talking about.
Absolutely. I totally understand that. Yeah. And I appreciate you chiming in, because it is sometimes we can do the math, or we have the numbers, we're aware they're there, but I don't know what they mean. And that's a great point you bring up. I'll give a for instance, while some other people may want to chime in here in just a minute. I had it, for instance, with my oldest daughter. My oldest daughter had a health scare when she was around 14, and we went to the hospital, and the doctor came in and he said, her platelet count is 5. Okay, yeah, 5 what? Like, what does that mean? Like, I have no idea. Is that good? Is that bad? Like, I knew 5. I know what a 5 is. I know how to write a 5, but I didn't know what a 5 meant. And he said, oh, her normal platelet count should be 150. I was like, oh, then 5's like really bad. And he said, yes. And by the way, 5 is not 5. 5 is 5,000. So I'm saying 5, but I really mean 5,000. And normal platelet counts are around 150,000. And I was like, oh, so we're in a different, once he put it in context, then I understood. Then I could make decisions based on that information. But just saying 5, I'm like you, like, I don't know. Come to find out, my daughter has lupus, and the one of the symptoms in her body is that her body destroys its own platelets when she is experiencing high levels of I don't know how to put it best, but when she has found that if she watches her nutrition, her platelet count is fine, thus becoming a nutrition major, and long story. But I totally get it, right? It's about knowing, sometimes it's about knowing what the numbers mean. And how do we make decisions if we don't have a clue what they mean? Not only, and that's a great point, because sometimes I think we get into a situation where we think that everyone ignores the numbers, and it's not that at all. Many times we know the numbers are there, but we may not know how to interpret them. So thank you for sharing on that. I'll have another instance. If anybody else wants to jump in, please feel free to do that. I love the input. Thanks, Kevin. Good. Yeah, I obviously am one of those people. Okay, so I'm a person who looks at the numbers on a regular basis. I often tell my children or my spouse, "Have you run the numbers yet? Have you put pencil and paper to it to figure this out?" Again, my oldest yesterday, we were talking about her budget because she's responsible for her rent and her utilities while she's at school. And I said, "Have you run the numbers on it?" And she's like, "Mom." And I said, "Darling, I mean, you're not going to be able to make rent and pay your bills and all of that just by chance, right? We all have to take a look at our income versus how much we're spending and all of that stuff." And so I said, "Have you run the numbers?" So obviously, I'm one of those that looks at the numbers on a regular basis. My spouse, on the other hand, because we know very much that many times opposites attract, he has had to learn to look at the numbers occasionally. So he and I will sit down periodically and look at our plans and what are our goals, what does our budget look like, those kinds of things. And we do that particularly with money, but we do it with other things as well. But he has had to learn to look at them occasionally, and he's many times said, I don't know what that number means. How do we get past that?" So here's our first spotlight, and as I mentioned earlier, our spotlight are where those of you who are looking for your live lecture quiz answers, that's our spotlight is going to have those located there. So today, aptly, after yesterday, I'm highlighting Martin Luther King, who invested in social capital, such as volunteering, as a way to better society. I love this quote by Martin Luther King. It's, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" And I think we have a lot after the holiday yesterday. I was super reflective on, what was the message that Dr. King was trying to promote, and those wonderful quotes that we have. I'm a huge quote person. If you were to see my office, you would see I have quotes kind of pinned up everywhere because they're kind of my inspiration. And this one by Dr. King is definitely one that
Sorry,
I want to keep in the forefront
and
of my mind,
somebody
so
commenting in the
that
box.
I can be reflective and make sure that you can. Oh, you can't see the PowerPoint. Well, let's
Yeah,
try that.
that-
Okay.
I'm sorry, Miss May. I didn't want to
No,
cut you,
that's
but
okay. I
I let
appreciate
you
you letting me
like
know.
say in the box about the PowerPoint, and they couldn't see
Let's,
something.
okay. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can share out now. Able to
Okay,
see what.
yes, I can see you now. We
Okay,
were
good.
at a PowerPoint, but now I can see this Martin Luther King.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you for letting me know. I appreciate that. Yes. As I was saying, huge. I felt like Dr. King left us had such wisdom that we can um, make a huge difference. I love, and I'll highlight the part about numbers. Yeah, yes, and we're going to talk a little bit about financial literacy and all of those things. But at the core, right, we are serving others, in addition to taking care of ourselves. And I'll use a quote later on, that talks about only when we take care of ourselves can we then help others as well. And I think that was the heart of what Dr. King was trying to do, was to better others through his own sacrifice. So I want to talk a little bit about busting the myth. So I hear a lot that people say, I'm just no good with numbers. And I think that there is a sentiment, and I hear it quite often. Many people feel that they feel this pressure to get it right, or they feel inferior or stupid for getting it wrong. And I think we have to view our learning very much like we do with numbers, and that is, you know what? I'm getting better, right? I not today what I was yesterday. I am getting better. I will give you a for instance, because mine is not numbers, but mine is writing. When I started my graduate degree, it was very intensive in writing. And let me tell you, this girl had math as my major in my undergrad, and math was my major in my master's. I mean, we took math classes. I did numbers. I wrote I hadn't written a solid paper since probably the freshman year of my undergraduate degree. And so here I was going to embark on this journey of writing a dissertation and a doctorate work and all of that. And I felt super inadequate. I felt like, oh my goodness, if anybody reads my writing, they're going to go, she is so uneducated. And I was here going, I have a master's degree in math, but it wasn't in my area of strength, right? I was being asked to do something that was out of my wheelhouse. But I committed to saying, you know what? Okay, the way I write is the way I write right now, but I'm going to get better. And the only way I'm going to get better is to write more. The only way I'm going to get better at reading is to read more. The only way I'm going to get better at numbers is to expose myself to numbers and needing to analyze them better. And this is a quote, people associate numbers with feeling pressured and anxious. So anytime they must deal with numbers, they feel uncomfortable and inadequate. Ooh, can we get big amens on that one? Yeah, I think there's a lot of people in that in that situation where we're not exactly sure, um, how to feel. But anytime numbers are brought up to us, anytime we have to look at a bill or a statement, and there's a whole bunch of numbers, we're just confused, or we feel pressure, or our heart starts beating faster and faster and faster. So I bring us to our second humanitarian spotlight, and the first picture on the left is of an author, Robert Putnam. And Robert Putnam warned us that when society grew wealthier and wealthier, our sense of community, our togetherness, our connection with our neighbor, our connection to the people around us would begin to decline. But then you have Mother Teresa. And Mother Teresa, in spite of having the opportunity to live in wealth, chose to live in poverty so that she could serve others. So you have this author that, and Putnam was right for the most part, that when our society gains more and more wealth, our togetherness, our sense of unity with our community does begin to decline. And then you have individuals like Mother Teresa that go against that current, right? They go against that trend and say, you know what? No, I'm going to choose to be different, but I'm going to have to do it intentionally. So let's talk about 3 tips to understanding the numbers better. So to the statement that says, you know what, I'm around the numbers, but I don't always know what they mean. How do I break through that? How do I understand them better? So tip number 1, always make sure that your information is accurate and up to date. So this is going to speak to where you get your information from. Making sure it's coming from a credible source, making sure the information was received in a timely manner. If you're making decisions based on data that was 6 months ago, that's going to look very different when we were in the middle of a pandemic, right? And hopefully now, God willing, we are moving out of the pandemic stage, and I want more current data, want more current numbers, more current information so that I can make decisions moving forward from here. So one way to understand the numbers better is to make sure it's accurate and that it's up to date. The second tip is make sure the information is presented so that it makes sense to you. Okay. For instance, and I wish I had a copy of it, but I don't. Okay, my electric bill, and maybe yours does too, but my electric bill comes and it has all my numbers, right? My amount, my when it's due, all of that stuff. And then it gives me the chart, right? Does anybody else have that same kind of electric bill? You got this chart graph kind of thing on it?
Yes.
Good. Okay. What I love about that chart and graph, I can quickly see if we overspent on electricity for this month compared to last month, compared to this time last year. And folks with 5 kids, I'm like, shut the door, turn the AC, I'm trying to conserve on electricity, but that chart is golden because I can see at a glance how we're doing with our electric bill. Now, after you've done it a while, right? Like I've been married 21 years. I mean, I can tell you here in Houston, August and September are going to be skyrocket high. I don't want them to be over a certain amount because I do know what our bill tends to be. I'm a numbers person, so I kind of remember that. But even if I didn't, the chart would give me an idea as to how we did compared to last month and how we did compared to last year. So make sure that that data, that numerical information is presented to you. It doesn't have to just be by line numbers. It can be presented with a chart and a graph. It can be presented in other ways that is easier for us to understand. And something I'll throw out there in our second week of our course, we're going to have an opportunity to do some of that analysis with other representations of information because it doesn't all have to come to us in just code line by line numbers. Okay, now the third tip I'll say is take your time to understand your information. So when we feel like we're in a rush, when we feel like we don't have enough time to really let the information sit with us, to sink in, we feel pressure, we feel anxious, our heart starts racing, and then that's when we get frustrated and we look at it and we go, well, I don't understand this anyways. So build in some time for yourself so that you can maybe look for a chart that has the same information that would help you understand it better. Realize that the way you're seeing the number is not the only way the numbers can be represented. Maybe we need to come at it from a different perspective, but all of that is going to take more time. And we need more time so that we don't feel pressure, we don't feel the rush of the last minute and all of that good stuff. So that being said, I'll just do a little side note here, right? We feel that same stress and anxiety when we wait till the last minute to do assignments. So if we can, approach our class as a way to say, I'm going to do like 20 minutes of writing on my discussion today. I'm going to do 20 minutes here the next day. And my assignment, maybe I'm going to sit down for 30 minutes and do that. And really do it more as a throughout the week, multiple times, instead of just sitting down on Sunday evening or Sunday afternoon and cranking it all out. Although I'll be the first to say there are times that that's just the only option. Right? I've got life happening, I got kids happening, and the only time I got is on Sunday afternoon. So I get it, right? But in a perfect world, if I want to try to lessen my anxiety, lessen the stress of the last minute, then I want to kind of space that out. And hopefully that helps as well with our numbers, understanding them. Our third humanitarian spotlight is humanitarian Oscar Schindler. You may have heard of the movie Schindler's List. It's no and the comment I have here is no secret that the emerging workforce has placed great emphasis on the importance of engaging vast social networks. Shout out to social media, right? Humanitarian Oscar Schindler owned a large factory where he employed thousands of Jews, which saved their lives in Nazi Germany. Schindler used his social networking, his place of business, to make a difference in not only his local community, but also his country, and known for really orchestrating himself with his business in the place where he could do that. And so we see that this could be done much like he used it in a way, much like Dr. King did. Schindler positioned his business to be and did it under the guise of his profiting his business, when in all actuality he was trying to save the many Jews. So let's talk a little bit about financial literacy. How many people, and you can just type in the chat there, how many people have heard of Dave Ramsey? Heard of speaker Dave Ramsey? He's kind of known in the financial sector. This will be the portion of our session today that focuses on the financial aspect. And I'll say this because a lot of times our work with numbers is connected to the money, right? Whether personally or professionally. A lot of times the things we learn about numbers directly affect our money. And so it's funny because I have my children, when I really am very intentional with them about financial literacy, I tell them, you will either learn to handle your money or someone will take it from you. And so it's a joking matter, but it's not, right? There's some truth to that. And so we do, in my house, we use some of the Dave Ramsey materials to teach our kids how to budget and what things in the financial world mean, like a mutual fund and things like that. But he says that there are three things that people do with money. And the first one, he says, is that they spend money. We can all testify to that. We just came out of the Christmas holiday season, right? And Rachel Cruz says a budget gives you permission to spend money. So many people use their numbers and their experience with numbers to build their budget every month. As they're looking at how they get paid versus how much they're going to put out in certain areas, expenses, whether it be rent or groceries or insurance or all of those good things. But I liked the idea that the budget wasn't keeping me from spending money. The budget was giving me permission to spend money. And it's another look at it, right? The second thing Dave Ramsey says people do with their money is that they save it. I will give you an example. My husband is a natural spender, right? That's what his natural bent is. And I am a natural saver, right? So I'm going to be like, let's put it back for a rainy day. And he's going to be like, And not in a bad way because he's learned to control it, but he's like YOLO, right? We need to experience and live life. And we fondly call ourselves, we fondly tell each other that he is the reason I have a life and I'm the reason he can afford his life. So, and many of you probably have opposites like that in your relationships where you're like, yeah, I'm the save it in the cookie jar for a rainy day. The kids are gonna need clothes and that kind of stuff, and so you constantly putting back. And my husband is the one that he makes sure that we don't just save, and he laughingly says, come out on triple coupon Thursday, kind of thing, because he said Marissa, you would only come out on triple coupon Thursday because you thought you were giving a good deal. I did, Emilio. I did say YOLO because that's really there's no other way to sum it up but to say that. But yes, so shout out to all of the savers, but also the spenders, that we both have a place in the relationship. And the third and final thing that Dave Ramsey says people do with money is they give. I loved this information that I found from the National Institute of Health that says when people give to charities, it activates regions in their brain that are associated with pleasure and social connection and trust. Like your body responds when you give. And I'm not just talking about giving money, because I totally believe there are other ways to give. We can give of time, we can give of money, of course, we can give of things we have. And I but I love that our bodies are naturally responding when we give. And not, the charity can be of your choice. It's something that you're passionate about. It's not something that somebody else is passionate about. So whatever you're choosing to give, that's why most financial planners, just so you know, agree that we should give a portion of whatever we have, because they know this connection to the the feelings that really help us to feel complete and satisfied. So my final humanitarian spotlight, and I don't think you can even talk about humanitarians without talking about Gandhi. But while social capital includes all of the resources that businesses and employees create, the power of one individual is not to be taken for granted. Gandhi worked tirelessly from 1915 to 1945 to advocate for peaceful demonstrations in India, and his actions influenced civic rights around the world. He really was that pebble that felt the ripples going out into other parts of the world because of his great work that he did in peaceful demonstrations. Um, so I hope, it was a good opportunity. And I did the humanitarian spotlights. Like I said, I kind of created this weekend when I was thinking about Martin Luther King holiday coming up yesterday. And I just really was super reflective about, um, yes, we're talking about numbers, and many times that means we're talking about money, and whether in our business or in our personal life, but we also have so much more that we want to give and that we want to connect with others, for those that are around us. So as we reflect today, I hope that we've got a few takeaways for us. And the first one is that the fear of numbers is not innate. That means you weren't born with a fear of numbers. That means that it is something that we learn, right? That we learn. We learn to be fearful of numbers. I get this a lot from people. They're like, oh, your kids are smart in math because they're your kids, right? Well, while my kids probably have access to a built-in tutor because I'm here, right? My kids weren't born with an ability in math. My kids weren't born with a fear of math. They were just born. And what they learn is how to look at numbers. This is why when I talk to elementary teachers, and Folks, I'm a former high school math teacher. That's where I started my career. And I feel like it is a great, oh man, it taught me so, so much more. So, so much. Um, but when I talk to elementary teachers who came out of school as reading specialists, I call them and I say, listen, please don't stand in the front of your classroom and tell those babies that you never were good at math. And they're like, well, why? Shouldn't I be honest with them? And I tell them, I say, you can tell them that you have to work hard at math. You can tell them that you had to put in extra time to make sure you understood numbers, but please don't tell them that you've always struggled with math and therefore they're not going to be any good at math either. Because that projection over those babies are just like sponges, right? You ever been around a group of 6-year-olds, right? They pick up everything you do. They're watching you like a hawk. And I encourage when I talk to elementary teachers, I say, listen, it would be better for you to tell them some people have to work at it, right? We all have to work at it, but some have to work even harder at math, and that's okay. Working hard's not a bad thing. And just trying to get that language that we don't speak of fear over them. I had to take a dose of my own medicine with regard to writing. I would tell my kids, I would say, listen, take your paper somewhere else for somebody else to read it for you. Because I would be like, I'm no writer. And then I had caught myself and I was like, ooh, I don't want them to pick up on that. I don't want them to take ownership of that statement I don't want to give that to them. I say, well, listen, let's read it together. And then if there's something we're unsure about, we still can call Aunt Kathleen. You all have that aunt or that so-and-so who's just like a grammar Nazi. And we can say, okay, what are we missing here? Right. And we learn together. That's kind of how I approach it with my children. But really, a fear of whatever is not innate. We weren't born that way. We learned it. We learned it through the scenarios and environment around us. Number 2 thing I hope we take away today is that we take the steps necessary to better understand the numbers. We talked about taking the time, making sure that the numbers are presented in a way that you can understand. And the way you might understand the numbers is different than the way I might understand the numbers. So making sure that we have that in place will help us to understand them better. And the third and final thing, money is meant to spend, save, and give. And really, we should do a little bit of all three, right? When we do more of one, let me rephrase, when one of us gets out of proportion, that's when our ship begins to not be level, right? We start to sink. So making sure that we're in perspective with whatever those are with regard to our money, that we're spending some, we're saving some, and we're giving some. I want to thank you all for today. I really, really enjoyed our session. It was as I said earlier today in our session, I'm rolling out new material this mod. So like I said, everything's in flux. So if you see something and you're like, I wish I had this, send me a message. I would love to hear some feedback on that. Like I said, tomorrow I'm going to do a session all about vocabulary from this week. So that is, what do the words mean? And remember, I said that's where you're going to want to work with the vocabulary for the assessment. I will definitely do that. If you can't make tomorrow's session, I will post the recording. That way you can have it. And then, yes, be looking for, you have my template for week 1 and watch the video that I did to walk you through completing the week 1 assignments. I've really created resources to help you maneuver all of the assignments, discussions, assessments, and whatnot, so that you don't feel like you're alone. Okay. Most of my videos are on my YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed, you might want to do that, but you will be receiving videos periodically, links so that you have all of them that aren't already posted in the course. So All right, I will go ahead and stop there for now. Thank you so much for coming. I enjoyed it, and I hope you guys have a great week.